Previously on Maplestory the novel, Sacred Tears.
There will be changes when the Keiseer chooses me.
You've been attending the Vutha Vargach again, haven't you?
We now celebrate those who have completed their training as Shivi-cova.
Are you stronger than Vulcurion?
How can you choose him? He's weak.
What would attacking accomplish?
Your objection is noted, Macross.
Then I cannot live among you.
And now the continuation of Chapter 16.5, Part 3. Yeso's training kept Vulcurion busy enough to almost forget about his best friend. Macross had since gone missing from Pantheon, and when his training left him enough energy, Vulcurion would search for him, often straining his wings late into the night. On this particular night, Yeso met him on the roof of the training barracks.
He's lost to us. You know that, don't you?
She asked mournfully. Vulcurion said nothing for a while, staring at the silvery moon hanging low over the horizon. I refuse to believe that. Macross can be...
There is no bringing him back. He is set in his ways, and you will not change his mind.
Yeso said sternly, reaching up and removing her helmet. With a gentle red glow, the armor of the Keiseer faded away, revealing Yeso as she truly appeared. Her fire reddish-orange hair flowed in the breeze as her armor reverted to a simpler green plate mail. Her left eye shone like a ruby, a small remnant of her draconic heritage. But her right eye was hazy and scarred, the color seemingly drained away from it.
My grandfather was a Keiseer before me. He was the Dratichai who taught you all the lessons as young ones. My two older sisters served at Shivi-cova for many years, gaining ranks and becoming well known by commanders and generals. But when I, a common Dracova, was chosen to be the Keiseer instead of my sisters, they turned against me. My oldest sister even tried to assassinate me that night, giving me these.
Yeso turned slightly, pointing to the scars and revealing her right eye to be blind.
My grandfather tried talking to them, but no amount of talking would sway them. They convinced themselves that either was the only genuine worthy candidates to become the Keiseer. To this day, they still will not speak to me.
Vulcurion sighed, drooping his wings as he looked out over Pantheon. A man's faraway scream cut through the night, followed by others as they were abruptly cut short.
That came from the council's chamber,
Yeso commented, her armor returning in a flash of light as she and Vulcurion flew toward the noise. Yeso outran Vulcurion, arriving at the chamber within moments. Over the minute it took Vulcurion to come, he could still hear Dracova killed amidst the sound of clanging blades. When Vulcurion landed, the sight before him made his heart freeze. Blood painted the floor and streaked the walls, soaking into the clothes of the slaughtered council members. He felt dizzy as rage began to overtake him, his fangs creaking and his eyes widening. Fire billowed from around his hands as he drew his sword and charged at the assailant the Keiseer battled.
Vulcurion, no!
She commanded, but his charge caught the man, pinning him to the wall and cracking the granite blocks making up the chamber. To Vulcurion's horror, he saw Macross grinning wildly over the polished edge of his friend's sword against his throat.
If this is what it took to use your full strength, I would have done it ages ago.
Macross seethed. Why did you kill the council? Vulcurion demanded.
Why? Why? The council brought nothing but weakness to the Dracova. The Drakeen laugh at us. Our draconic heritage melts away with each decade. I will make us strong again. The council was holding us back.
This is not the way, Macross!
This is the only way! I have the strength to see my future through. Do you have the strength to ensure yours?
Vulcurion could only sneer at him, holding himself back from pushing the edge of his sword through Macross's throat. The Keiseer grabbed his forearm firmly, shaking her head once Vulcurion looked back.
Put your sword down. Do not take this path. Not like this.
The Keiseer instructed, gently pulling his sword arm down and guiding him away from Macross. Before Macross could react, the Keiseer pressed him to the wall, a low thrum billowing from her throat. Macross was thrown into a stable with solid ropes and chains, while Vulcurion, the Keiseer, and some nearby Shivi-cova cleaned the blood from the chamber until morning. When the sun rose, it was ironically the color of blood, lighting the room with its fiery glow. The Shivi-cova dragged Macross before the king and queen to answer for his brutal actions. His only answer was the words he had howled to Vulcurion, preaching how he would return strength to the Dracova. The king sighed heavily, his fists balling and his body shivering, until he bellowed that Macross was banished, never to be looked upon by any Dracova from that day forward, no matter how human. The Shivi-cova then dragged the writhing Macross through the city and across the great bridge connecting Pantheon to Eusoria, tying him to a tree with his chains and ropes and tossing him down the road. Vulcurion stayed as long as the Keiseer allowed, walking with slow, heavy steps, listening to the wrathful screams of Macross fading behind him. "I'm sorry, Macross," he thought, swearing that he could hear Yeso's breath quiver as well. Macross screamed until he began to bellow blood, struggling to loosen the ropes around him as dirt and twigs raked across his face. When his energy was finally spent, he buried his face in the grass and wept. Only now did the weight of his banishment hit him. As a youngling, the only family he had was his mother. His father died when rogue humans raided their small Dracova settlement. He could still see the knife lodged in his father's back, just as Keiseer Yeso swept in and dealt with the humans. Despite the healing powers of the Keiseer, his father still died. At the Keiseer's behest, the settlement moved back to Pantheon, where he met his lifelong friend Vulcurion. From the day he learned of the Dracova's history and the origin of the Keiseer, Macross vowed that he would become the Keiseer and be better than she was so that no one would lose another loved one again, even if it meant conquest or mass execution. As he lay there, he heard footsteps nearing him. They sounded light, like a human female's, and there was another human with her. They too were light, but wider. Perhaps it was a human male? And then there were the heavy steps of a quadruped. A horse, maybe? No, these were too heavy for a horse, even a large one.
"Oh? What do we have here?"
the woman's voice said, almost mockingly. Macross clenched his jaw, his body tensing as he felt the chains and rope loosen from around his body. Tilting his vision slightly, he could see the woman's long, blood-red hair, instantly making him think of the Keiseer's armor. With a growl, he bolted from his bindings, grabbing the woman's arms and pinning her to a tree. Her sick, green eyes looked surprised, but excited, as if the action had pleased her.
Oh, such power.
She said in sensuous awe, her cheeks seeming to blush.
Release Hilda, or face me,
the man said, the sound of a spell humming to life behind Macross. He turned to see an older man, a giant cobra coiled behind him, and a large skeleton dog bull standing to one side.
Who are you?
Macross demanded, his scratchy voice no more than a hiss.
I am Arcarium, Master of Dark Alchemy, and Earl of Destruction. And the woman you hold is Hilda, the Reaper of Aswan. Who are you?
The man answered. Macross set Hilda down, squaring his shoulders and holding his wings wide.
Mac. I am Magnus, Jariti's Queen of the Dracova.